Hi everybody, this is Benjamin with the Ecom-support team. I'll be hosting this webinar here today to go over tracking inventory costs to improve profitability. Just kind of quick overview. We'll be going over some different business models and different costs that are associated with those models, and kind of different ways to calculate pricing to ensure that you can be as profitable as possible with those costs in mind. We'll get started here in just a few moments. Just kind of want to keep things open here as people kind of stream in. This webinar will be recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel. So if you do need to step away or would like to review it at a later date, you will absolutely be able to do so. It'll just be up shortly after the broadcast. So again, we're just going to kind of keep things open here. And we'll get started in just a few minutes, like I said, as people stream in. All right, thanks again, guys, and I will be right back. All right, so again, my name is Benjamin. I'm a product specialist on the Ecom-support team. We're going to get started here. Looks like we've got a good amount of people here, and then we'll go ahead and get things kicked off. So again, this is going to be kind of an overview of tracking inventory costs to improve profitability. Like I said, kind of the workflow we're going to take through this is going over the various types of business and some of those costs that are associated with that, some of the costs that are associated with selling online, and just kind of ways to keep track of that, keeping that in mind so that as you're pricing your products, you kind of know what to keep in mind and what to take account for when generating those prices to ensure that you can be as profitable as possible. So we'll go ahead and get started here. So again, kind of just brief agenda. We're going to go over some various models of supply chain management, basically how you get your products, the costs associated with those, different types of costs that you do want to keep an eye out for, pricing strategy that takes into account that cost, and then just kind of go over an example of the various costs associated both with acquiring items and selling them to kind of figure out what's left, how profitable can you be with these strategies, taking into account your various costs. So we'll start out here going over the different types of businesses that most online sellers are using, or just sellers in general, but going over different ways that you can run your business. Start off here, as a wholesaler. So essentially, if you're a wholesaler, you're purchasing these items in bulk ahead of time at a set price, and then you turn around and sell these online to get the profit. As mentioned here, these are normally business to business because of the large number of items and the high dollar amount. It's very rarely business to consumer. Kind of just brief workflow here, obviously, is get them in bulk. Have to have a place to store them. Sometimes there are costs associated with that, depending on, especially with this type of model. There's normally going to be costs associated. It's not storing it in your basement or in your garage. These are large numbers of items that need a dedicated storage space, and then turning around and selling that. So that's the first kind of major one that you're normally going to see is a wholesaler. Then we've got the reselling model. This is going to be the most recognizable to most people, which is just buying them in bulk from other businesses such as wholesalers, distributors, or manufacturers, and turning around, listing those items online and fulfilling those orders, whether it's again something that you have the products on site, or if you have an off-site fulfillment center. Ultimately, you are purchasing these items in bulk and then reselling them out. And we have retail arbitrage, which is different than reselling in that you are purchasing these items not in bulk, but are essentially keeping an eye out for deals. Basically, whether it's a local shop in your town or online, keeping an eye out for discontinued, overstock, clearance, buying those items up at that much lower rate, and then turning around and selling them on your online store, which normally you can mark up a good amount because you are getting them at that heavily reduced rate. The negative normally times though is most of the time these items are possibly damaged, unwanted goods, not popular, or discontinued, which, if the market that you're looking for to sell those in, that's what people are looking for, then, this can be pretty successful. It can be tough though to keep track of inventory and things like this, and there are a lot of listings created because most of the time, you're just kind of buying up what becomes available instead of just reordering items on a regular basis, such as the reselling or wholesale methods. We have private labeling, which is, again, it's very similar, except that when you get these items, you're essentially getting them and putting your information on there, your logo, your brand, and getting that and then reselling it to customers as your own. So very similar to reselling, that you're purchasing these from someone else. You're not manufacturing them yourself, but you get them and then make them your own and resell them on your storefront. Then we have liquidation. Essentially, this is very similar in that you're, again, buying some items that are just heavily discounted from another retailer or wholesaler, holding on to that items and those items and turning around and marking them up. So, as we kind of mentioned here, a lot of times you can get these at a very high discount. The problem is, again, is you may be buying these and then are turning around and trying to sell items that have been damaged or unsellable. So there are some risks associated with this. So very similar to retail arbitrage. The retail arbitrage is not necessarily, liquidation, just because you could be going out there and just buying some items from your local Best Buy, your Target, Walmart, or buying it online at Amazon, Sears, and turning around and reselling them. Again, liquidation is more doing so in bulk, getting those and then selling them at a normally pretty marked up pricing. And then drop shipping, which is one of the more common. So along with wholesale for business to business, resellers, which is very large for business to consumers, drop shipping model is another one where we have a lot of users utilizing Ecom Dash for this type of workflow. But essentially, you don't purchase the items ahead of time and you don't store them. Instead, you partner up with a drop shipper or a vendor, sell their items online, and when you get that order, you get it routed to them for fulfillment. So this is a very popular one in that right off the bat, there's not normally, there may be some type of membership cost or some type of contract that you would put into place with these drop shippers. But as you're, obviously you're not paying until you sell these items. So, that this is an extremely popular model that we have a lot of users that are taking advantage of. So now we're going to get into the next section here, start going over some different types of costs. All right, so your product costs are only a part of your overall cost. There are various different types of costs that are very important, especially with low margin items that you do really need to keep in mind when listing your products to ensure that you are able to be profitable. So outside of just, all right, when I bought this item, it cost $5, let me sell it for $10. There are some other things outside of just you purchasing it for $5 that you do want to keep in mind. So we're going to go over some of those different types here and, kind of what they can mean, where they come from. So shipping costs, this is in a situation where you are purchasing the items from a wholesaler or a manufacturer or distributor. When you buy those items, you need to get these shipped to your location, whether that's your house or an offsite fulfillment center. You do need to get them there. So on top of what you're actually paying for the item itself, you are paying for shipping to get it there, as well as any other fees such as customs, duties, taxes, tariffs, insurance, currency conversion, crating, handling, and payment fees. And that's what's considered landed costs. That's the total cost to get the item to you once it's received at the doorstep. So obviously things to keep in mind is if you're selling heavier items or you're purchasing from a wholesaler, distributor, manufacturer that's a considerable distance away from you, possibly international, there's going to be a large number of costs that's going to come from that just to get the items to you so that you can begin fulfilling orders. So if you purchase 1,000 items at $1 per unit, your shipping cost is $50. Therefore, taking a landed cost into account, your actual cost per unit is $1.05. So essentially, we're just taking the 50 and getting it split across the individual units. That's going to give you, so again, the dollar per unit, but you do want to keep in mind that shipping. So it takes it from simply $1 to $1.05. Then we have taxes. So when you purchase an item, you may need to pay taxes to get that item to you. They can vary state to state. So, this is something that each seller kind of needs to do research just to know what the sales tax is, where you're purchasing it from. So most products you can see and touch are taxable. Services aren't usually, but let's say if you just kind of as a generality, again, you're purchasing 1,000 items at $1 per unit, your cost is not going to be $1,000. After taxes, we can just say for this example, a 6% tax rate. At that point, you're already up to spending $1,060. So as these kind of build, you can kind of see the various types of costs and how they can really add to your price. So if you're spending, that extra on shipping, you've got taxes, things can add up pretty quickly. As well as the fact that every business is responsible to collect and pay taxes as part of your sales. So it's not covered, but is a cost of the product acquired. So when you sell this item, you do need to cover those taxes back to the state and federal government. To ensure your total cost is covered, you must include the taxes paid for your product acquisition in your total cost basis. So again, it's very important that when you acquire these items, you will have to pay taxes, and to ensure that you're able to price your items at a profitable number, this is something that you're going to want to take into account on top of the shipping cost previously mentioned. And we have marketplace fees. So this is something that can be a very wide range, and it can drive a lot of sellers crazy. But essentially, to list your items on certain sites, so Walmart, Amazon, eBay, you may have to pay a fee to list that item. So sometimes it's by listing, sometimes it's just in general to be able to sell items there, you do have to pay this amount. So if you are charged per listing, it should be associated with the cost of your individual item. So for example, if you know to list on eBay, your account, you have to pay 10 cents for each listing. Now you're wanting to add that in. So if using the example we had previously where you purchased 1,000 items at $1 per item and you're going to list 1,000 of those, you do want to keep in mind that 10 cents is now part of the cost for each of those 1,000 items to get out there. Sometimes there are limitations as well, and to break through them, there may be additional fees. So again, this is something that once you have the items in your possession, you're ready to start listing. These are some more costs that are going to come into effect and that really need to be kept track of, again, because these types of things can add up, especially if you are listing in large amounts, getting a lot of products out there. If you're keeping it pretty small, it's still something you want to keep track of, but it's not going to be large. If you are doing like a drop shipping method where you're partnering with a distributor or vendor and are listing all of their items on your sites, that's a large number of listing fees that you're going to want to keep track of. Then we have the sales fees. So there's a listing fee, which is specific. Every time I create this listing, I need to pay this. But there's also the marketplace sales fee. So a lot of sales channels, online sales channels, will actually take a cut of the sales you make there. This fee normally is a percentage, but sometimes it can be a fix that each sale you make, you got to pay us this number. Again, this is another fee that you do want to keep track of to get into your profitability, because if you forget these things and are simply pricing based on the cost or even shipping and taxes, these things can really affect that number, your bottom line, and can really eat into your profitability to the point of no longer making money on the sale. Just kind of quick example here of a marketplace fee. So if you purchase 1,000 items at $1 per unit and you're creating this listing on a site where they charge you 10 cents per listing, you sell that unit for $3. So just kind of going off this method of, all right, well, I purchased it for $1, sold it for $3, I made $2 profit. But we also have the listing fee of 10 cents, and the marketplace takes 9% of the overall sale in this situation. So your actual profit would be, it's not $2. Instead, it would be $1, which is the product cost, plus 10 cents, plus 27 cents, which is the 9% your marketplace is taking for this, which takes the total cost of the item to $1.37. So if you made $3 on this, but the total cost is $1.37. Instead of looking at $2, you're looking at $1.63. So if you extrapolate that across, looking at over 1,000 items, if you listed all 1,000 of these, the difference is going to be significant in what you're actually making from these sales. Then on top of that, kind of the last step here in the checkout process is processing fees. So if you are using PayPal, Venmo, Authorize.net, there are some others out there as well, things like Square. Most of the time, you're going to be paying a processing fee between your marketplace or your shopping cart, as well as the processing of the payment to your bank account. PayPal, for example, charges 2.9% of the total amount processed, and in addition assumes a 30-cent fixed fee for all orders processed through. So anything through PayPal, paying 30 cents, and then you're going to pay that percentage of 2.9. So now that we have this in mind, again, you purchase 1,000 items at $1 per unit. You create one listing which costs you 10 cents. You sell it for $3, but the marketplace takes 9% of the sale. And now your payment processor is taking that additional 2.9% and a 30-cent fee. Now your actual profit is $1 plus that 10 cents plus the 27 cents, which put us at $1.37 previously. Now taking into that processing fee, you charge the payment for $3, 2.9% of that is 0.087 plus the 30-cent fixed fee. So if you charge $3 for this item, you're now only making $1.25. So again, it just keeps going down, and this is all simply to stress there's a lot of fees that come with selling online, and knowing about them ahead of time and being able to track them and price your products properly can ensure that you're able to make money on these listings, and instead of kind of losing money and then being out of it very quickly, because it can happen very quick with these various costs. Then we have storage and support fees. So if you have products and store them somewhere, so whether you have them in your house or you have them out at a fulfillment center, you do need to keep in mind some of those costs that are associated with that. So as you add more products, so again, this is another one where if you're really purchasing items in bulk and storing them somewhere, that's a large space that you're going to need to pay for. And most of the time, there's going to be some type of fee. Typically, this is cost per cubic foot. So the amount of space that you take up at that storage facility, at that fulfillment center, at that offsite warehouse, you're going to have to pay for. So in keeping in mind that when these more items you purchase, though you may be able to turn around and sell them quickly, you are having to store them somewhere, and there are costs associated with that to keep those stored. Then you have, very popular things like FBA or a fulfillment center, where on top of being able to use their services, which there's normally a charge, they also normally charge for order that they fulfill for you. So it's yet another fee that when that order comes through, that you're having to keep in mind on top of whatever it is you're paying to keep your items there. So these can be very important as well, and as we mentioned here, these can become expensive to the point of making it not worth it to sell certain items if they do have a very thin or low margin, because as you take into account the cost to acquire the item, the listing fees, the selling fees, the places to store them, and any per order fees that a fulfillment center may charge, things can really add up and get out of control. And this really is a pitfall for e-commerce sellers. They, see an opportunity, hop in and try to take advantage of a market that they can capitalize on. But especially for very small businesses that are just getting started, they're used to cost of a brick and mortar store. Or maybe running it out of their home, and are not aware of these things. So keeping all these in mind can absolutely help you towards success in some of these businesses. The other thing is, as you grow, most likely you're going to need some help with your business so that you're not doing it by yourself. Costs associated with that help needs to be, kept in mind as well. So while you can't really say, the added cost for this employee adds 10 cents to this one item, it still is something that you do want to keep in mind, and be able to make up for as much as possible. And one of the good ways to do it is keeping track of it, seeing how things go, and then subtracting that from your monthly revenue to get you back to profit, so that you can actually see what you're spending there and manage it properly. Now we've gone your true cost. So again, we kind of start things out with, it cost me this much to acquire this item, I'd like to sell it. We just went through some various ways to demonstrate how once you've paid that, there are a considerable amount of other things to keep in mind as part of selling online, so that when that item sells, you can make some money on it and run a profitable business. So now we'll go over some strategies for how do you price your item. Now you know the costs associated, but how do we figure out what do I price my items at so that I can be both successful and competitive, but also profitable? So obviously when it comes to pricing, there are many different theories and things you can read online out there on how to price your items. But for the sake of this webinar here, we're going to go over just a few different options that are very popular in terms of coming up with pricing for your products. And we'll kind of get started here with Keystone Pricing. Keystone Pricing is the most common, which is a 50% markup on cost. So if your cost for an item is $1, your selling price would be $2. So what that's saying, that 50% is 50% of the final selling price should be your cost. So if it's $2 and you bought the item for $1, that's 50% of the $2. So this is a general guideline for pricing. And you're going to run into additional factors that sometimes may not make this method work. Part of that is, in certain situations, if you use this method, you may price yourself out of a sale, and that competition is selling it for a much smaller markup. And while they may be profitable still, they're going to get that sale. Make a little bit less, but they're going to get the sale because they're pricing it at a cheaper price than you. Also, for rarity, if you're selling one-of-a-kind items, antiques, collectibles, most of the time you're going to be able to price it much higher than that type of markup, just because market for it smaller, demand may be higher, and supply is low. So if you decide to mark up something other than just that 50%, kind of go over a quick way to calculate your selling price. So if the selling price equals the cost of your item divided by 100 minus the markup percentage. So if you want to mark it up by 50 or 40 or 20 or 70, you just kind of insert that number there. So you have your cost, then you do 100 minus that markup percentage you'd like to put it at, divide your cost by that number, and then multiply it by 100. And that would come up with your actual selling price. So if you assume an item costs you $10 and you want to use a markup of 35%, selling price would be calculated by just plugging those numbers in to the equation we have above. So selling price in this case would equal $10, the cost of the item, divided by 100 minus 35, and then you multiply that by 100. So if we kind of put those numbers together, as we follow through, again, selling price equals 10 divided by 65, which was the 100 minus 35, and multiply that by 100. And in this case, it would say sell your price at $15.38. So it'd be a 35% markup. We'll get you to that price. We kind of note here that you do not want to multiply the cost by 35% and add that amount to the cost, because that'll produce a retail markup of 17.5%, not the desired 35, because you're marking it up by the smaller number instead of the opposite. So one thing to keep in mind if you are doing it this way is don't go just right off the bat and say it might cost $10, multiply it by a 35%, and then add that to it to get my markup. Instead, make note of this equation where you can just plug your numbers in each time, calculate it out, and get that number. Just again, cost divided by 100 minus your markup percentage, and then multiply that by 1,000 or 100. Sorry. As mentioned, you may want to have higher than a 50% markup, but if your item is pretty competitive, that's not always going to be possible. In this case, it's very beneficial to get an idea of what your competitors are selling the items at, so that you can price it profitably, but also to ensure that you can get the sale and that you're not pricing yourself out of that sale. Then there's map price. So map price is a minimum amount that resellers agree not to advertise below for a product they're representing from a manufacturer supplier. So for example, a backpack company that you purchase a backpack from to sell online sets the map price at $50 for its best-selling item, essentially saying you can't sell that or advertise it any lower than $50. If you're going to sell it online, that's got to be the number. And so, all resellers that take those are obligated to advertise that product at $50 or more. Can't put it at $49. You've got to advertise it at that map price. So in this situation, it's a little bit less calculation. It's more, well, here's a number that I can't go below. So, if I want to provide it for the best deal, here's what I can sell it at. If I'm looking to make a little bit more, and it's possible to do so without losing the sale, that's kind of the number to start at. And so now we can kind of go over just examples here on taking it from the beginning to the end. So taking into account the various costs it takes to sell your item, to acquire it, to sell it, to fulfill it, and applying different pricing methods to get you to a profitable price point. So we'll go over, like I said, the full example. This example does assume that your shipping cost is covered by charging for shipping directly. So simply saying shipping of this item was going to cost $10. I'm going to charge the customer $10 for shipping, so we won't really be going into that. But we will be going over the acquisition, the listing of it, which are the marketplace and processing fees, and then come out with the total profit for that item. So for this full example, beginning with product acquisition, start with 1,000 units of a widget that costs you $1 per unit. You need to get this item to you from this distributor. So to purchase the item, it's $1 per unit, plus it costs $50 for all 1,000 to get to you. And the tax related to that product reaches $60. So your total landed cost, which again is the cost it takes to acquire this item, is $1,000, which is the $1 per unit for 1,000 items, $50 for shipping, and $60 for tax, which gets us to $1,110. If you take that $1,110 and divide it by 1,000 units, that gives you a landed cost of $1.11 per unit. So your actual cost is $1, but your landed cost, which again takes into account shipping and taxes, comes out to $1.11 per unit. Based on the $1.11 unit cost and applying the 50% Keystone markup, the product you would be able to list for $2.25. So to actually create the listing fees associated with this product, so you're going to list it at $2.25, but there are these marketplace and processing fees. So the site that you're going to list it to is going to charge you 10 cents to put your listing out there. On top of that, the sales channel is going to take 9% of your sale. Then when credit card processing takes that payment, it's also going to take an additional 2.9% of the sale, and then they charge a fixed 30-cent fixed fee is applied. So to kind of break it down, if we take the $2.25 and subtract the 10-cent listing fee, we also take the $2.25 and multiply it by the 0.09, the 9% marketplace fee, which comes out to 20 cents. The $2.25 times the 0.029, the 2.9 percentage your credit card processing company takes, and the 30 cents fixed fee that they charge for each time they process an order. You take all those fees, the 10 cents, 20 cents, 6 cents, and 30 cents, your total fees to complete that sale is 66 cents. So again, that's listing it, when the order's placed, and when your credit card company or your processing company takes their cut. So if we take that into consideration, your sale price was $2.25, the landed cost was $1.11, total marketplace and processing fees were 66 cents, your total cost comes down to $1.77. So if we take your sale price of $2.25, subtract it by $1.77, you're making 48 cents on this item. So making a profit truly requires understanding your costs, because as you can see in that example we just went over, there's a lot to keep track of, and there's a lot of data to know that you need to be able to see and make decisions on how you want to price your products at. Because again, without doing so, without taking into account each of them, one of those fees can ruin the entire process. Again, really depending on the competitive space you're selling in, the products you're selling in, and the quantities. They add up fast, and it can be extremely beneficial to know where you stand, so that as you get these items and begin listing them online or changing prices for listings you already have, you know what you can do that you'd be able to afford, so that you can make money on your sales. So this is one of the big ways that Ecom Dash as a software can help you out. It can give you visibility, give you a single place where you can view information across each of your storefronts, keep track of the costs that you're paying each time you order your items, keeping in mind shipping and handling and taxes. And keeping track of employee costs, and as well as listing and sales fees. So a few of our features that apply to this specifically is our sales order management. So anytime an order is placed on your storefront, that order is going to come into Ecom give you a place where you can see your total revenue for an order, as well as any fees associated with those sales, so that you can kind of get an idea of, when I sell this item on eBay and that order comes into Ecom here's what I was charged by eBay for the listing and for the sale. Inventory management, which is going to allow you to see where you have your quantities at all times. This can be extremely helpful for the warehouse management side of things. If you are storing your items off-site, you can very quickly get an idea of how many products you have over there at each of your warehouses. So, not only if you have one, but if you have many, you can see for a product, I've got 100 at this location, 200 at this location, so that you can kind of keep in mind what you're paying at each of those places. Purchase order management's huge, especially when it comes to cost. And within Ecom this is a feature that, when taken fully advantage of, can really inform your decisions on what to price your products at, because that's the key starting point for this. On top of the fees and processing and stuff, the biggest thing is going to be just the straight up cost of an item. And by using Ecom to purchase your items and send POs to your suppliers, we will keep track of the just straight up cost of the item. So you can put in there and say, the cost of this item is $10. But as you purchase it with the software, we will continue to keep track of not only just the cost, but an average cost, so that you can see over, period of time, this is what I pay for this item on average, but also landed cost. We will give you an average landed cost, keeping in mind each purchase order you created, the shipping and handling applied to that, and the taxes applied, so that you can get that idea. Those types of things can be done within the UI by simply clicking into a product and seeing its average landed cost, as well as using some of the reporting that Ecom provides. You can pull a report out of the software, get a complete idea of your landed cost, average cost, and total cost of goods sold for these items to, again, help inform what you can do. With Ecom also, we give you a single place to list. Keeping your listings updated, not only get your listings out there, Ecom can help you with that, give you one place to send your listings to Amazon, eBay, and if you got a shopping cart like Shopify or something like that, but also the ability to get an overview. See, all right, how many listings do I have on the storefront? If you're finding that a certain storefront's really killing you on fees, Ecom can give you one place where you can say, all right, well, how many listings do I have on that storefront? Could I cut that down maybe? Do I need to sell all of my items there? Maybe, I can sell all of them on another site that's not charging me as high of a fee, but still keep some there if you are getting traction. The other thing it allows you to do is fully manage the listing, and that if it's already out there, you can use Ecom to update pricing. So if you're coming, start selling online and struggling with pricing your products competitively and at a place though where you can make some money, Ecom can give you one place where you can quickly update the pricing of your listings. So you can find your eBay listing, look back at some of its landed costs, its average cost, some of the fees that you've been incurring on that item, and mark up the price. Put in a new price and submit that change out to the live listing so that you don't have to go to each site. We are also now going to be offering a ability to mark up, to say, take my cost, my map price, my wholesale price, my retail price, and either submit it as is or mark it up. And you would be able to put in a percentage, apply that to the price of a listing, and submit that update out to the storefront. So that's really big. That once you get the data from using the purchase order management, the inventory management, sales order management, that can help you inform creating new listings, but also ensuring your listings that are already out there are as profitable as possible. Also, shipping management, Ecom gives you yet again a single place where an order can be routed. So if you are a drop shipper, or if you're using drop shipping, Ecom can automate these processes so that when an order is placed on the site, it simply gets routed to your drop shipper for fulfillment, so that they can get it picked. That helps save you some time, and time is money. So if you're not spending the time creating orders at your drop shipper, Ecom can get them over there for you. Simply pass them an order file, get the order fulfilled, and they'll send us back tracking. And also shipping within Ecom. One of the big things is Ecom gives you a place to ship your orders out so that you do not have to go to each sales channel, generate the label, or go to some third-party outside software. With Ecom, once the order comes in, you're able to create shipping orders and see what the cost is for that label. And we also keep track of that, so that you can see as you're shipping orders out, what are you paying each order, each month, each day to fulfill, and get these items out to your customers, so that can then be used to better calculate your pricing. So on top of all the things that Ecom can do, these are some of the ways that can be applied to give you information so that you can price your listings profitably. So kind of as a, again, these are just kind of some of the ways if you're already an Ecom customer, and you have any questions regarding how to take advantage of some of those features or where to find them, please reach out to support. We are happy to answer any questions you may have. If you're not an Ecom customer, we do offer a 15-day free trial that can give you a full overview of the software and what it can do. And during that trial period, again, you can reach out to support, and we're happy to guide you, assist you, point you in the right direction on some of these features. So overall, the key is selling online. There's different ways, different types of businesses that sell online. Each of those different types of businesses have their own specialized costs associated with them, as well as the actual act of listing it online. And the key is understanding what those costs are, where they come from, and knowing them ahead of time so that you can price your listings properly, so that you can make money, while also keeping in mind being able to not only make money from it, but be competitive and get to the top of the list so that people see yours first, and still get that. So it's very key to keep some of these things in mind. If you do have any questions regarding this, feel free to post those in here. Take a look, see if there's anything can get answered for you. Outside of the webinar, like I did mention, we are going to post this on our YouTube site for review. If you did need to come back to it, or if you did need to step away for a moment, you can also reach out to, as I mentioned, to support at any time after this webinar. We are happy to answer any questions. You can reach us by sending an email to support@ecom-.com. If you're a user, there is a chat functionality within the software that can be accessed by clicking the green support button, or you can schedule a call with us by clicking the gray question mark within the software. So just be one moment here while I review, see if we have any questions, and see if we can get some answers here for you. I'll pop back on here in just about a minute. If you don't have any questions, and don't want to hear what some of them are there, this will be the end of the webinar. And again, we'll be able to have that posted and get you guys a link to that here shortly. All right. All right. So I did see a good question here come up. Just because we did kind of touch on some of the payment processing fees and things like that, asking if we are integrated with Square. At this time, we're not currently integrated with any payment processing. So, while orders can be manually created in eCom-Dash, the actual payment for that order does have to be handled outside of the software. However, our product development team have been looking into, and we do have on our roadmap integrating some type of payment processing, and Square has been one of the ones we've been looking at, so that as manual orders are created, that payment can be processed again in one place. The biggest goal with eCom-Dash is just to give our users a single location where they can manage their inventory, manage their listings, manage orders. And so anything that we can do to add to the software to make that possible is definitely something that we would like to have. So while we aren't currently, it is definitely something we are looking into and would like to have here in the near future. It looks like that's about it here for questions. So if you guys do have any additional questions, like I mentioned, please reach out to support. We're happy to answer any questions you may have. But we do appreciate you joining this webinar here today, and keep an eye out for some of our other upcoming webinars that we will be hosting here, and then coming months and throughout the year. So thanks again for joining, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.